Here we go.
Hey, don't take it for granted.
Could
I said
God-
something nice about apologetics.
Could God freely pardon the repentant, or did he require payment? You or me? I'm happy to go.
I'll fix whatever you get wrong. Just kidding.
Um,
I'm kidding.
This just goes back to, like, on the one hand, you want to say God's going to act according to his nature, and his nature is not something external to himself that decides what he does. It's him, but it is him. And so he's going to do the perfectly just thing because he's perfectly just. So if someone sins, that's an injustice. And and I'll go back to this, I've said it 1,000 times on the show, but if we captured Adolf Hitler after World War II and he hadn't killed himself, and we said, okay, well, look, we want to show you love. And so even though we should give you a trial and maybe even the death penalty and all these kind of things, what we're going to do instead actually is we're going to hug you, pat you on the back and say, don't you ever do that again, but we love you. Well, that would be wrong, wouldn't it? That would be bad. It'd be bad. Well, why is it bad? It's bad because there's no justice. And we would be mad about that sort of thing because justice needs to be done. And so a good God will act justly. So the question is really is God good? I mean, if God's good, then there's going to be a penalty for sin because he's just.
Yes. Can he? Yes and no. I mean, if you're asking, because see, when you look at, and I know that you don't affirm PSA. I get it. And if you read Pierce for Our Transgressions, I get it. It's shoddy church history. I know. But as someone who does affirm PSA, let me explain. If it is the case that PSA is true, then in that sense, no. But when you look at a text like Romans 3, for example, where a lot of people go for it, which I think it's there. I've had this conversation with my friend Nick Quint. Is it propitiation or expiation or whatever? And I'm like, yes, both. And of course, the removal of divine wrath is exactly what a bunch of Greek people would hear, even if Paul meant a both and instead of an either or. And that's precisely the point, right? Because God had passed over sins previously committed, right? But he wasn't going to do it indefinitely, right? So can he? Yeah, and in fact he did. He passed over sins previously committed, but at some point, he had to do the inbreaking with the apocalyptic move with Christ on the cross. And what does Christ on the cross? What did that mean? It was God presented him. It says in Romans 3. To be just, not just to declare just the one who has faith, but he did it to be just. If you stop the sentence right there, it shows that Christ was on the cross presented by God so that God could be just. And then also, in addition to that, declare just. So, I understand people like Idol Killer don't affirm PSA, but I think you need to rethink that because there's ways to do it without all of the, and N.T. Wright is really better at this than a lot of people. There's really ways to do it without the caricature that the worst proponents of penal substitutionary atonement leave themselves open to the cosmic child abuse and all that.
Okay.
Yeah, they have some of those. They've earned some of those characters, but there's a way to present it that's not that.
Yeah, we got it.
So yeah,
we got it.